Welcome gentlemen and gentlewomen. Today I'm going to make you part of one of the ideas I was tinkering in my head, because up to this point I was thinking about playing a new class, a new spec for Season 4. I was thinking about, I'm playing a shaman, I'm playing it as a healer, I'm also playing a paladin as a tank. Perhaps I can start trying out something else. You know, I can buy the Mistweaver will be meta meme, so I can try out Mistweaver and then also Brewmaster as a tank. Maybe now that Restoration Druid is meta, I can go back to playing Druid, so I can play Resto and Guardian. You know, I was playing around with these ideas for a spec to choose, a spec to play in Season 4. Then I suddenly realized that Season 4 is going to come out much earlier than perhaps previously expected, because, you know, previously people were thinking, they were of the idea that Dragonflight was going to come out in February. Maybe knowing Blizzard, they would have stretched it out into March. So even knowing that Season 4 will be shorter than the previous seasons, if the expansion comes out in February, then Season 4 might as well come out in October, right? So, you know, it was May, now it's June, October is quite a long ways away. I don't really need to rush it. However, now we know that the expansion will come out presumably before the end of this year. So if we assume a random date like 25th of December, why not? Then Season 4, which has to last less than previous seasons, sure, but also cannot last like 2 months. It must last something a little bit longer than that. Then would make sense for Season 4 to be out in July. Maybe early August at the very latest, but even at early August it will still mean September, October, November, December, so barely 4 months for the season, which is just about what you would expect for their definition of Season 4 being shorter than a regular season. So that's where I started guessing the timelines, the time of the releases of all the things planned for the end of this year, which seems to be quite packed for Blizzard. Not just the end of 2022, but also the start of 2023. Blizzard has on the pipeline, you have Wrath Classic, you have Overwatch 2, you have Diablo 4, and now you have Dragonflight as well this early. So I was thinking about a timeline for essentially for when I should start preparing, when I should start thinking, deciding, and eventually starting to play a different character. If it's gonna be now, if it's gonna be mid-July, or if it's gonna be late August, right? There is quite a difference in time. So we know, let's just start with the obvious. We know, given what we have been shown in the announcement of the pre-orders of Dragonflight, that the max time, supposedly the max time in which Dragonflight can be released is the 31st of December. Now, this is just a maximum date. It doesn't mean it's going to be at the 31st, so perhaps it's going to come quite earlier than that, perhaps before actual Christmas, you know, before maybe the start of December, mid-December. There was, by the way, worth mentioning, a prophet. One of the many prophecies, one of the many supposed leaks coming out before the announcement of Dragonflight was a fellow over at the MMO Champion forums that, amongst many of his leaks, was also pointing out that the expansion was supposedly coming out late November. Yeah, that's when the entire leak was discarded and the man was being outed for being a fraud and a hack, because of course, who would believe that Dragonflight was coming out in late November, right? Now it starts to make a little bit more sense, however. Now that we have the pointer that the expansion is coming out in 2022, late November seems as good a guess as ever, right? Looks good to me. So I think I would buy the theory that the expansion is coming between late November and early December. Once you buy that story, then you have to start thinking, when is Season 4 coming out? If the expansion comes out early December, let's just say 6th of December, then there must also be another thing which happens with expansion: Prepatch. There needs to be very likely a period in which Blizzard will be able to introduce, for example, the new talent system. That is something that will likely come live before the actual release of the expansion, and you will not get to play it just from the release, but also from the pre-patch. Perhaps a few other additions coming in Dragonflight will be made available in the pre-patch. This is a tradition of expansion releases. So not only is the expansion supposed to come out, let's just say, on December the 6th, there should also be something around a month worth of pre-patch. So from the 6th of November to the 6th of December would be pre-patch time. Then that's where Season 4 comes into play. So that's when the new cyclical raid season comes out with the affix, the Mythic Plus-esque affix being put into raids comes out, the new Mythic Plus season with the new affix and the new pool of dungeons from the older expansions is going to come live. So if the pre-patch comes live on the 6th or so of November, then back to October, back to September, back to August would be a 3 full months of a season before a pre-patch. At the start of August, perhaps it might go even earlier than that. Of course, now it's the end of June. We are basically 1 week away from July. To be fair, we also have no current info, let alone about Season 4, but we also have no current info about the start of the alpha of Dragonflight, the start of the beta of Dragonflight, so it gets quite confusing and quite random to try to guess the times when we have such little information in our hands. But I do think that if I had to go full prophecy mode and start guessing my timeline, just so I can go back to this video a few months from now to see just how badly wrong I was, if I were to make on the spot a timeline, I would say early December the expansion gets released, early November you get the release of the pre-patch, perhaps it's not even gonna last a full month, and then you have Season 4 coming out from mid to late July all the way into the pre-patch for the release of Dragonflight. This would be my 2 cents when it comes to the possible schedule, the possible timeline for the last few patches of this season and then for Dragonflight in the next expansion. I was thinking about it, as I said, because I was trying to give myself a deadline on when to decide what to play for the next season, and then I realized, wait, when is the next season coming out? How much time do I have? So that's what I came up with, thinking about how much time do I have, thinking about the next season coming out. I think we are quite safe getting into July without any season coming out. Then as we start to get into mid-July, it starts to get a little bit more on the fence, and by late July I would be expecting Season 4 to come out, and the very latest being early August. Of course, there is the question about what about the cutting edge, what about ahead of the curve, what about achievements, etc., that come with the seasonal rewards, right? This is also something I thought of when I started looking at the gigantic amount of nerfs that the raids have received. I was thinking, even if Blizzard wanted to nerf these raids, the pace, the speed at which they have been nerfing these raids is just too fast, you know? Perhaps most of their bosses would have gotten a similar amount of nerfs, but over the span of 6 months or 8 months. It's weird to think that we have gotten this many nerfs from the release of this raid, which has been 3.5 months, and the amount of nerfs is massive, it's gigantic for such a short time frame. So that also makes you think, I think it hints at the fact that Blizzard wants the tier to end faster, to make people get their cutting edge, get their head of the curve, because they are planning to release Season 4 quite early, which makes sense, because then players would have very little time otherwise to get their stuff, their rewards from Sepulcher, right? If we think about it, we said this season lasted 3.5 months. We are also saying we predict the Season 4 to launch late July, which means it would make this season, Season 3, Sepulcher tier, only last 5 months. So basically all of March, April, May, June, and then July. That's it, 5 months. It is quite short, right? In comparison to all of the other raids we have gotten previously, it is a very short-lived raid tier, it would be. So I think all of these things together would point towards a Season 4 being out quite early. Definitely not, certainly not out with a timeline that was considered before, certainly not out mid-September, late September, early October. At this point, with the release of Dragonflight being set up to be before the end of this year, there is no way Season 4 will be out so late, which is why I started thinking about it. So that would be my take for the schedule, the Blizzard schedule for World of Warcraft when it comes to the end of this year, the second part of this year, really. That being said, it's going to be quite interesting. It's going to be quite interesting to have a season 4 come out, very likely. I'm hoping, very likely out right when the beta of Dragonflight is out at the same time, right? Usually, previous expansions, we would get the beta out months after the last tier was over. And when I say was over, I mean the first, 200 to 300 guilds killed the boss, right? It was several weeks into the patch, etc, etc. Now, however, if season 4 is to begin, as I said, August or so, I'm seriously hoping that by the time we are in August, we already have the beta of Dragonflight, which would mean we would be fully in the cycle of the beta of Dragonflight with a bunch of new stuff we haven't gotten to see yet, plus the season 4 at the same time, which is it is going to be quite a unique unique thing, a unique experience, really, because it hasn't really happened before in the game. So I'm also curious about that. I'm also curious to see how it's gonna how that's gonna play out overall. But for today, this was the point of today's video. It was to try to tinker with my theory crafting about when was season 4 coming out, so that I can get prepared with my characters and my alts and whatnot to select the chosen one that I will try to play a little bit more by the end of this expansion. So I'm hoping that this type of thoughts might have gotten some help, even to you if you were undecided on what to play or when it is time to actually decide and choose something to play. Perhaps now you have a clearer timeline in mind, provided the timeline I just predicted will be correct. Perhaps I am completely wrong on all accounts and it's gonna be a disaster. That's why the video was made, so I can go back, pick this video up and laugh at my older self for how wrong I was. But for today, we can stop here. So thank you guys for watching the video, and by doing so you helped contribute to the growth of this channel, and then you can also continue to do more at a much less effort than watching a 12-something minute video, which is just by liking on the video and commenting down below. As usual, if you have nothing worthwhile to say, you might as well roll your face on the keyboard and input whatever you entered. Also, to conclude the full support to my channel, you can subscribe as well. You can also find me, as a side note, you can find me and follow me on Twitter right in this direction for some more interesting thoughts about the game and very little e-celeb attention seeking. Also, you can find me and support me on Patreon as well down in this direction, but this is just for the more extreme parasocial friends. But still, I'm not gonna judge you if you do that. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I'm surprised. I was thinking tonight was gonna be even hotter, but actually it's almost fine. Actually, it's almost pleasant. I'm surprised.